You'll recall that I had a 0.01 capacitor that had a shield around it. Now Dirk's pointed out that it's actually got a resistor in it as well. Today I thought I'd look at this selenium rectifier. It needs to be removed. Very happy with the way that's worked out. Made a bracket to fit on an existing bracket and the resistors are mounted on there. So I'm going to do the AM alignment to start with. I'm going to have a go at FM alignment. I've never done it before and I haven't got the tools to do it anyway. To pick number 4, number 3, number 5, 2 and then 6. So I'll start with number 4.
London Club.
That is 100% better than what it was. It's time to do the case now. This is an interesting case. It's a timber case. And the paint job, I believe this is called Starburst or something like that. They're very popular on guitars, if I recall. And it's quite unique. Now the finish isn't too bad if you stand back from it, but up close it's a bit of a mess. It's a bit hard to see here, but all over it has these long cracks in the lacquer. And that's fairly typical of lacquer, that's particularly if the radio's been stored where it gets hot and cold apparently. I did think of using a lacquer thinner just to try and reactivate the lacquer and get it to heal up the little cracking, but it's got a few other problems with it. It's got this darkness here and there's a bit down there. I don't know what it is. It's got a seam along there where the joint in the timber is, or where the timber's bent at least. It also has pieces, chips out of it like that. And this area at the back here is really bad actually. So I thought I'm going to strip it off and I'm going to refinish it. How I get this sunburst back on, I'm not sure. I've got a couple of ideas of how to do it, but we'll have to see how it pans out. First thing I need to do is get all this plastic fascia off. The plastic's just held on with some little screws and nuts, so I'll just remove all those and we should be able to take that out pretty easily. Look how much that fabric's discoloured. Beautiful bright colours there, and just years of cigarette smoke, and gosh, I hope I can make that look a bit better than that. Luckily this plastic fascia's in good condition, bit of a polish and probably just redo the gold, and yeah, it'll come up pretty good. So that's easy enough. So it just leaves the case to fix up now, and I'll head out to the workshop and try and bring this back to something like new. It will be very interesting to see how I go with this. Well, the case is ready to strip. I've got some stripper ready and I'll see how this goes. Alright, I'll just leave that for half an hour or so and we'll see what happens when I try and scrape it off. Alright, let's see how this goes. I'd left it on a bit long, it's gone. Let's try it out. Just judging by the way this is coming off, the stain looks like it's built into the lacquer, so it's been applied with the stain and lacquer mixed together. Well, it hasn't come off very successfully. I'll give another coat of stripper and let it soak a bit longer and give another shot again. Okay, that's got a nice thick layer of stripper on that, so I'll let that sit for half an hour and try again. Alright, this has been a little while now. I'll see how this comes off. That seems better. I've got the air conditioner on. I think it's drying it out. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So the way this is coming off, as I said before, it's got the lacquer and the stain in mixed together, so that might be a clue is the best way to put it back on, I guess. It's coming off pretty hard though. I'll just keep working at it and I'll get there eventually. Okay, I finally got all the lacquer off it and it's come up all right. There's some areas that are not so good. Now these were the areas that had the marks on them under the lacquer that you could see, and it's gone through the veneer when they've machined it. I've sanded it lightly and probably made it a little bit worse actually. So there's not much you can do about that. What I can try and do is just stain through where it's gone through with a bit of dark stain and hopefully colour it to try and disguise a little bit. And when I paint it, I'm going to put some stain in the lacquer so that it actually puts a coat on it. That also will help disguise it. You'll still be able to see it, I'm pretty sure, as you could when it was original. Anyway, not much I can do about it. I'm going to try and disguise those a little bit with some stain. Now, my previous attempts at doing stuff like this has not been successful, so... Well, so that looks a mess. There we go with this one. Well, I don't know if that's better or worse. It's got a bit of metho on it at the moment, so it's got a different colour. But I'm gonna leave it like that. There's really nothing I can do about it, so I just have to live with it. Oh, I've got my trusty Aquacoat grain filler, so I'm going to go and try and rub this all over it, and then we'll sand it off in a minute. Yeah, I've covered that with a good layer of the filler, so I'll just let that dry for, I think, about 40 minutes, an hour or so, and I'll sand it off lightly, and we should be ready to start the refinish. That's been drying for about an hour. I'm just going to sand it off with some 320 and see how it comes up. That's come up really nice. It's nice and smooth, and yeah, it's really good. I just got to work out now how I'm going to apply the finishing coats to get that sunburst effect. That's not going to be easy. I've got some tints here, or interior stain, and a piece of timber kind of matches the same colour as the timber on the radio. So what I'm going to do is put some clear lacquer on here and just mix a bit of the tint with it, and just see how close I can get it to the original radio colour. I'm just putting a nice thick coat of the lacquer on one little square there. I'm just going to see if I can just... Hey! Wow, that's red. That's maple. I thought maple was red, and it didn't look like that on the little colour chart, but anyway. Next one I'm going to try is oak. Let's use another finger. Whoa. Okay. And what's that one? Golden teak, yeah, so that's quite a yellow colour, isn't it? Well, there's the three colours. That's out for sure. That's not so bad. It's kind of brown. That's kind of yellow, so I kind of wanted a yellow-brown. Maybe I can mix those two together to just take a bit of the yellow out. Right, we'll let them dry and see what they look like. This is dried now, and there's the two possibilities. That's a brown, and because that's a yellow, as we said. The yellow is going to be the one I have to go for, I think. I think that'll be alright. It's supposed to look like a sunburst. Well, here I've cropped my sample and put it on top of an original photo of the radio. And the original colour of the radio is yellow, but it's got a bit more brown in it. I think I'll mix a bit of the brown stain with the yellow just to take some of the yellow out, and I reckon that'll be fairly close to what I need. I'm ready to give it its first coat, and we'll see what happens. I'm just rubbing it off with a tack cloth to get any bits of sawdust or dust off it. So I think I'm ready to go. So I've used golden teak, and I've added a bit of the oak to brown it up a bit. We'll see what it looks like when it's on there. Hopefully it'll be okay. So as usual, I'm going to put some protective gear on and take the camera out, and we'll have a look when I finish spraying it. It's a half-time report. That's one coat, a very thin coat too. So I think that's what it'll end up like, sort of around that area. So that's not too bad. Well, that's it with a few coats on it. It needs to be rubbed back, and then I'll do the brown on the sides. But I'm pretty happy with the colour. It's come out yellow, but with a brown tinge. So probably doesn't look so good in the camera here, but in the normal light, it's quite good. This has been drying overnight, and I'm just giving it a rub down with some wet and dry and some water to smooth it off, and then I can think about putting the brown highlight on. Okay, I'm ready to do the effect around the edges there, the sunburst effect in brown. I'm not sure how this is going to come out, and I'm quite nervous. Now, I bought a little tiny little spray gun for doing fine work, so I'm hoping that'll work. I've come up with 1,000 ideas of how to do this and dismissed them all. So I'm going to do this one. We'll see if this works. It seems to work all right. And I've done a sample here, just spraying it on this bit of timber to see, and it's quite controllable and gives us the edge that we need there. So we'll see how we go. I'm going to leave the camera running if I can, just so you can see what I do. It's building up slowly, you can definitely see it there. I need to move further in. I thought I'd start heavy there and just move into there later on as later coats to blend it in a bit, not make such a line, but very easy to control with that gun, and yeah, it's coming up pretty well so far. I've done both sides now. I'm going to bring it further in than where it is now, but that little spray gun's doing a terrific job. I'm going to let it dry and come back and give it another coat. Well, I think they're pretty much done. Now that's all got to be rubbed back again, so that'll pull that back a bit, and the yellow will come back through again. There's quite a bit of overspray on it, but I expected that. I've done all the front. That's looking good. You can still see the grain through it. So yeah, it's coming along well. I hope it looks good once it's rubbed back to what it is, and then I'm going to put several layers of clear over the top, and then just keep polishing back to try and get that high gloss they had on it originally. It's been 24 hours since I painted it. It's come up pretty good, I think. There's a lot of overspray here. I've just been rubbing it back. I've done the top, and I've just got this side here to do. I've just been using this sanding block. These are pretty good, actually. I've never used these. So it's a rubber covered with grit on it, and it goes into the crevices, whereas the solid ones don't, of course. So this has been all right. So I've been doing it with that, then finishing it off with some wet and dry, and then some steel wool, and it's coming up really well. Now I'm just going to finish it off with some steel wool. I'm trying to keep this as straight as I possibly can, so the little scratches are in line with the grain. Now this has come out amazing. The finish is silky smooth. It's terrific. Now this has still got some minor scratching in it, so I'm just going to work a little bit more. Then I'm going to give it 3 coats of acrylic. I thought I might use an automotive acrylic in a spray pack. The acrylic I have been using, and I've used on here, is a 60% gloss. So I'm thinking this had more of a piano type finish on it, so I might go full gloss. I can do that with the automotive paints. Well, I've finished sanding and smoothing, and I've cleaned it off with a tack cloth. It's ready to paint. I'm going to put a high gloss clear on it, and here it is here. It's their own brand, super cheap brand. I find this one works very well. If you get the better quality ones, they seem to affect the paint a little bit. So this one's quite mild, and it comes up well, and I can sand this back and keep polishing it like a car. So we should get that mirror finish I'm looking for. So I've got to put a respirator on. I'll just spray a little bit so you can see how it's coming out, and then I've got to take the camera out. This will get pretty misty in here. Alright, that's the first coat. I'll get out of here and let it flash off. I can probably recoat it in about 20 minutes. Alright, this has had 3 coats of the clear lacquer on it, and it's the next day. I've just rubbed it back with some wet and dry, and then finished it off with some steel wool. I'm going to apply another 3 coats or so, I think, just to finish it off. Then I'll rub it back lightly and polish it with some automotive polish, and we'll see how it comes up. Once again, that's been left overnight, and it's quite hard to finish. So I'm going to rub it back with some fine wet and dry, and then I'm going to polish it with some automotive polish. Oh, that's come up pretty good. I've just taken the gloss off it just to take any big lumps out. Now I'm going to polish it. I keep saying wet and dry. It's waterproof sandpaper. Well, I think wet and dry might have been a trade name at some point when I was a kid, so I still call it that. It's just waterproof paper. Now I'm just going to use this Mr. Buff cutting compound. It's a medium or fairly heavy duty. It actually will cut into the paint, so I'll just use that first, then I'm going to run over it with a polish. That's coming along very nicely. It's looking good actually. So I'm going to just do a little bit more there. Still got a little bit of orangey peel look in them, and I'm going to do the ends here and the front, and we'll see how it comes out. So the next thing I'm going to do is use a cream cut and polish. This will still cut into the paint a little bit, but not as much as the first one, of course, and which should give it a bit more shine. That's brought the shine back a fair bit. It needs more work. Once again, I'll just keep working away at it. That's come up well. I'm just going to put a soft wax on the top. That'll just bring out a bit more gloss into it. Well, that's come up pretty good considering it's a timber case. It looks pretty good. Now originally I was very worried about attacking a job like this. I was not going to do it because I thought the case was good enough, but boy, I'm glad I did it. It's come up really well, and what an experience. Just looking at this in the shed in the lights, and it's come up pretty well. I could probably do better next time, but I can't complain. So I'm pretty happy with the colours that come up. The yellow's quite yellow. I thought it was going to be a bit too brown after I added the brown to it, but that looks pretty good. Now the brown on the edges there is wider than it was on the original, but it still looks alright. Next time I'll make them a bit thinner if I was going to do it again. Here's the damaged area that was standing out a fair bit on the old one. It's not too bad now. My attempts at trying to track the grain through there are pretty dismal. Should have been thinner than that. There's the other bit of damage there that had a big black line along there in the original, so that's down to that. Nevertheless, those little bits of damage there, you really can't see them, whereas before they were sticking out quite predominantly. So, yeah, very good. Now, anything left to do painting-wise is to do the black inside here. So I've got to sand that back and clean it up, and then I'll just put some black paint in there. I've got to try and get the tar and 60-odd, 70-odd years of grime out of this cloth. It's pretty good condition, but it used to be a white and gold colour, silver actually. So now it's gone a gold colour. I've done a bit of an experiment in this area here, and I use this. It's K2R stain remover. You just spray it on, you leave it for, well, I left it for 24 hours. It says 20 minutes, but overnight if possible. And it says just keep repeating until you get it clean. So it is moving it. So I'm going to spray the whole thing over the next few days until it looks good enough to put back on the radio. There's the bit I've cleaned compared to over here. It's not coming out very well on the camera, but it is whiter. You can see it's starting to lift it, so a few more applications, I think that'll be okay. Just going to try and clean the knobs up a bit. The other knob's okay, but this one's had some sort of chemical damage or heat or something's got to it, and it's been damaged on the top there and just around here. Now I'm going to try and machine it off, or sand it off at least. Now the brass ring in there should be a nice gold colour. Let's try and bring that back. I can take the ring out, but I think I might damage the plastic doing it, so I'm going to leave it where it is and just work around it. So I've got some sandpaper here. I'll just see if that does anything to it. Actually, that's quite effective, so I'll keep going. This is a bit of 1200 wet and dry. The damage is still there, so I need to go deeper with the other sandpaper. It's looking better. It still needs a lot more, so I'll just keep working at this for a while. Just using a bit of oil just to clean it off with some wet and dry. I don't want to use water on my lathe, so I'm just using oil. Well, that looks good. There's just a tiny little bit of damage up against the ring there that I can't get to. I might just try and do it manually. Yeah, just there. Apart from that, it's come up really good. Nice and smooth. It's as good as it was. So that's great. Now here's the other one, and I'll put that in here, and I'll just quickly polish that up. That doesn't need much. That'll come up good as new. There's both of them done. You can't tell which one's the faulty one, so that's come up really well. I've been a bit worried about how I was going to do that and whether it would come up or not, but that's a great result. I've got some lacquer there designed to prevent the brass from tarnishing, so I'll just paint that on the brass part only, and they'll last a lot longer before they tarnish off. Here's the outer knob as well, so I'm going to just polish those up as well. No, there's nothing wrong with these, they just need a clean. So there they are, they look really good. They're polished up well. This is what I use to protect the copper or brass that's shiny and it's going to tarnish again. And it's just a lacquer, very thin, it's almost about water consistency, a bit thicker than that I suppose. But it just puts a little clear coating on it and stops it tarnishing again. Now to do the knobs, I just put them back in the lathe and used a brush to apply the lacquer to the ring. That seemed easier than trying to do it freehand. And there they are, you can't even tell they've got a coating on them, so good job. I've given this a couple of treatments with that spray, and it's made it a bit better, but it's nothing flash. So I'm not going to do any more. It's this stuff's pretty fragile, so I don't want to play with it too much. I'll leave it like that. I'll live with that, and maybe one day I'll get some new material that looks the same. Who knows? Now the next issue I've got is the speaker. It's missing. Now I've got another speaker here. This is a 5x7. It's out of an Australian radio. Whatever speaker was in here, and I can't find any reference to it, it was a strange shape because it's very wide but quite narrow. So you'd think it maybe was a 4x7 or something like that, whereas this one's a 5x7. I think I can make this fit. These bolts are out of line with the holes in the speaker, but I can drill new holes, pick those up, and at the top here I can make some little L-shaped clamps, and I can just clamp around the ridge of the speaker and just clamp the rim down using the nuts that are there. Now the other issue is the actual overall height of the speaker. It's got to fit here where the tone shaping switches are, the 3 push buttons, and it's got to fit in the top of the case over this side, so it's very tight. It does just make it, and that's all. So if I stick to right on that edge there, and I think it'll fit in. So if I look at it from the other side, it hangs over quite a bit. I didn't want to go for a 4x6 speaker because it would just be too small for a radio with this capability to have such a tiny speaker in it. So now if I do it this way, I'm not actually altering the radio, I'm just making the speaker fit into what's on the radio now. So if I ever do get hold of a speaker, I can retrofit it back in pretty easily. I'll just run out to the workshop, drill a couple of holes to pick up these 2 bolts, and then I'll work out how to make some little brackets. Alright, we'll see how we went for accuracy. Oops. That's not bad, good. Alright, we're just going to clear that there, so I'm happy with that. So what I think I'll do is I'll just make some little rectangular brackets here with an L on the bottom. That'll act as a little foot, and I can put the nut on and that'll just clamp down on there. There's the two little brackets, they're all finished. They just fit on there like that. There you go. And put the nuts on there and that'll clamp that down. I reckon that'll be quite acceptable. I'm very happy with that. I'm going to move on to the next item on the list. Now I've cleaned up this plastic escutcheon. It had some paint across here and it's taken out some of the gold. I was tossing up whether to worry about it or not, but I think I'll have to now. So I've got some gold paint. I'm just going to brush it in and then try and stay in there as much as I can, but then wipe off around the edges. It's quite a deep engraving, so I should be okay. So I'm going to start here. This brush is way too big for this. I'm going to let that dry a bit and then I'll wipe it off with a rag. Hopefully it'll leave the lettering in the engravings. I'm using mineral turpentine and I've checked it on a bit of the plastic at the back. It doesn't affect the plastic. That's okay. Now the ear here is a bit strange because it's got some damage around it. There was a big paint blob on there from when this has been sitting around or someone's painting, and it's kind of etched into the plastic a bit. So I reckon I can get a bit of wet and dry and just very lightly sand all that to try and clean that up a bit. Now I'm going to try and do this freehand. I'll see how we go. Well, that's come up pretty good. There's a little bit, I've gone out a little bit, but I can clean that up. That'll be alright. So that's pretty good. So I'm just going around with a turpentine damp rag and just cleaning off the edge there, and it's coming off quite well. So it's only just damp. Yeah, it's come out pretty good. I need to just fix that E again. Like I said, I'll just get some waterproof paper and just sand that back, and I think I'll be right. Now, a number of people said to use boot polish on the back of these covers to bring them up, so that's what I'm doing. It's only got a little bit of damage around here, and I've done that bit and it's covered it okay, so it sounds like a good idea. So that's kind of covered it, that's not too bad. I'll just run over it with a soft brush and try and polish it a bit, or shine it a bit. Yeah, that kind of took it out again. I've only got a mid-tan boot polish. I think I needed a dark one. Anyway, that looks pretty good. Now, just before I finally assemble this radio, there's something I have to clear up from part 2. In part 2, when I was aligning the AM frequency, the IF, the step after doing the IF alignments was to connect the dummy antenna to the antenna and earth socket of the radio and adjust the IF blocking circuit V to a minimum. Now, I never found V, it's not marked on the schematic and it's not marked on the drawings. Now here's the drawing they give you and there is no V. Now I did find an upmarket model of one of these and it had an extra tuning can in here somewhere, and that had a V on it. I thought, oh, well, that must be it. It's not on my radio. However, a gentleman in Germany named Derek commented that no, V is over here. It's on this antenna input board. Now, I'd already wondered if that was V and I'd adjusted it, but I didn't get anything out of it. I couldn't work out what it was. It didn't seem to do anything. So Derek suggested I try using a sweep signal on a generator, input it into the antenna here through the dummy antenna, and adjust that to absolutely negate the signal coming in. And the idea is that this IF is 460 on this radio. The idea is to block any 460 that might be roaming around, coming in and going straight through the radio. So that's the IF blocking circuit, and here it is on the radio. There's the adjustment there and the coils around the back. Now I've set up my generator and it's on sweep mode. I've got it set at 455 and 465. The IF on this is 460. So it's just it's going to sweep 5 kilohertz either side of it. So I've connected the dummy antenna to the aerial input on the radio. Now you should be able to hear that, I'm hoping. So it's going to adjust it till it disappears. There it goes. And it's just coming back again, so I'll go somewhere in the middle. So that's completely blocked the 460 IF signal coming in through the antenna. So that was V, and I'm going to mark it on the schematic, and I'm going to try and upload it to Radio Museum as well. So thanks Derek. Once again, people got me out of trouble, and it's another thing I've learned about German radios. I'm ready to put the radio back in the case, I think. Now I've laid out all the parts I need to assemble it into the case, and everything's accounted for. Now I had to make up some nuts that were missing. And there's the speaker ready. There's my coffee, so we're good to go. Now I've got the scutcheon on a pillow here, and now I've just gently put the case on it. The paint should be pretty hard, but I don't want to put too much pressure on it. Now I should be able to fit this in here. Like that. Now, I'm not going to do anything uptight until I get all the nuts and fittings on. I'll put some star washers on here as well. Now just put the speaker in. Now because the speaker hangs over this bit here and some of the cone is actually exposed, I'm going to put a bit of foam along there. So I'll just take that out for a sec. And I've got some self-adhesive foam here, so I'm going to put that there just to block that bit of the cone that's exposed, so we don't get any leakage back behind the speaker. So I'll try and push against the bit of masonite there. Just put the speaker in. There you go. So that should have sealed that off now. It's not touching the cone, of course. I made sure that was all squared up, and I've done the nuts up fairly tight. When I get the chassis in, I might have to adjust the front a bit either way, so I haven't done anything up really tight yet. I'm going to try and fit the chassis back in. Now I read somewhere that you need to put it in on an angle first, like that, and then it'll just sit down. Oh, didn't like that. What was that? I don't know what the crack was. It was the front panel, of course, but I can't see anything. Alright. Now the volume control's hitting the plastic, so I need to take it out again. I've had it in and out a few times and I've worked out how to do it. So it's a matter of sliding it out here. And you need to be on the edge of the table. And then once it's cleared the fronts there, you just rotate it out. I've adjusted the volume control. I'll see if I can get this back in again. Yeah, that's better. It's got the gap. It was hitting up on the plastic there. Now I managed to get some wood screws that are, not the Phillips, and about from the right era. So that's in. There's also a couple of screws there on the bottom. They were missing when I got the radio, so I've put those in there. They're a Phillips head, but can't see those, so I'm happy with that. So we put the knobs on now.
variable around 10 knots, becoming southeasterly 10 to 15 knots in the middle of the day. Seas below 1 metre.
So that sounds good. That's got the new speaker in it, or the new old speaker. But it sounds really good, nice and deep and bassy. It sounds great. The Magic Eye's looking good. I thought it was a bit dull to start with, but it's pretty good. And the dial looks good. The only thing letting it down is this cloth. It's got dark spots. It's dark around the speaker here. So so I'll see if I can find some more somewhere. You know, we're not going to get this sort of stuff in Australia. So if anyone's got some lying around, let me know, and I'm happy to pay for it. And that would really finish this radio off. That sounds fantastic. The spectrum of the sound is quite wide. I was a bit worried about doing an FM alignment without the visual guide on the oscilloscope, but that sounds really, really good. So very happy with this. Now the wife's got this earmarked for the kitchen, so I think she's made a good choice. Yeah, sounds fantastic. Now just before I put the back on, I'm going to check the polarity of the speaker, and that just means that when the speaker cone is supposed to be moving outwards, it is, and not being drawn back. So I'll just make sure it's in the right phase. I have a little device here that measures the pulse and which way it's going. So there's a little soundtrack you play into it. So I've got my phone here and it's playing the little pulse soundtrack. At the back of the radio, the phone's plugged into the phono input. So I'll put the volume up. And we should get 3 green pulses and 1 red. So that indicates that it's correct polarity. I can put the back on. Here's the bottom panel here. That's just got slots in there. There it goes. Now it's got a screw down the bottom to hold that in position as well. I'll do that later. Now I put tape over here to protect myself while I was working on this thing. So get rid of that. I think they slip. There you go. These are metric. I don't have any age-appropriate metric screws with a slotted head, so I've had to settle for ones with a Phillips and a slot. I think they'll do. There you go. So this is the bottom panel here, and there's just a screw there. And that fixes that. Now the last thing I need to do is on the bottom here, they've got little holes for felts to put in there to cushion it onto the surface you're sitting the radio on. So I've made up some new ones. And the ones that were in there were all flattened. And these are double stick ones. Sorry, this, yeah. So just stick them in there. And the last one. There it is, all done. A NordMende Elektra 58. I think it's from about 58. Come up very, very well. Looks nice. The cloth lets it down, and that's something I'll have to attend to. I'll have to get some new cloth that just makes it look a mess. But apart from that, it looks great. Finish on the case is spectacular. It's come up really well. I'm getting better at doing the timber work, so that's good. The first few attempts were pretty woeful. But a really good radio. It sounds really good on both AM and FM, and picks up all the channels. It's working very, very well. Here's the Russian Magic Eye in the right light. It looks pretty good, so I'm happy with it now. It's working well. So I've learned a lot with this. I've learned a lot of electronics, cabinet work. I learned a bit of that too. I've learned a bit of Russian. I haven't learned Russian. This has been my first real experience with a German radio or a European radio. I do have another German radio that all it needed was some capacitors replaced, and it worked fine. So I didn't do anything else to it. But this one I had to get into a bit deeper, and I've enjoyed it. It was good to learn another point of view of radio manufacturing and the way they designed it and what they were trying to achieve with it. The Aussie radios are pretty straightforward. There's nothing hard in it. This thing's just very complex. and I still struggle to follow the schematic. Every time I look at it, I see something and think, oh, of course, that's what's going on there. And appreciate all the comments that helped me fix up some of the issues that I had or mistakes I'd made, and I was able to correct that. So thanks to those people. And lots of people offered to translate the German to English for me. A bit late, I'd already done it, but it was good fun. Well, that's it for this radio. My wife's collared this one, so it's going out in the kitchen. So I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed doing it, and I hope you can join me for my next radio adventure.
Go further than your gauge. Social life must stay online. Keep 2 meters clear of me. Watch TV, drink lots of wine. That will kill COVID-19. Cough in your elbow, wash your hands with soap.